your sports talk worldwide with some news from the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed. Now, Demetrius Andrade, right? WBO champion, just beat Leon Williams in a good fight over the weekend. WBO champion in the middleweight division. Two division champ, matter of fact. Demetrius Andrade sends some respect to Leon Williams. And I think it was pretty classy, a classy move. We'll get to that in a minute. But other thing with Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Andrade has been said to be the most avoided fighter that I've ever worked with. And this is promoter Eddie Hearn. You know, everybody knows Eddie Hearn, the promoter of Anthony Joshua, among others, and a whole lot of people. You know, he promotes Devin Haney too, another avoided fighter. So he's saying Demetrius Andrade is the most avoided fighter he has ever worked with. Now, back in the day, Marvin Hagler and Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier, we know Joe Frazier, the guy who beat Muhammad Ali first time. Joe Frazier told Marvin Hagler back in the day, hey, homie, you got 3 strikes against you, right? And it is what it is. 1, you're black. 2, you're a southpaw. And 3, you're good. And all 3 of these applies to Demetrius Andrade. That's why he's pretty much avoided, and it is what it is, right? With the fight, you hear that his fight against Leon Williams was not impressive, and it was absolutely impressive. You had a guy who was coming to win, a guy that was definitely a tough guy, applying pressure the whole fight, and listen, he had the guy down and hurt Leon Williams on several occasions, and listen, if Demetrius Andrade knocks him down, or knocks him out in the second round, what would we be saying then? Would that be impressive, or would Leon Williams not be that good at that point? So at this point, I was able to deal with this guy for 12 rounds, and after a long layoff, and that was very impressive. But we have a tendency, right? With Devin Haney and Gamboa, I can remember, that Devin Haney wins every round against Yorikis Gamboa, which people won't do, right? And that wasn't impressive either. Rigondeaux beat the hell out of number 3 pound-for-pound Donaire, right? He got blackballed, called boring, right? Floyd Mayweather beat the hell out of Manny Pacquiao. That fight was called boring. Matter of fact, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, Floyd Mayweather, and Demetrius Andrade, these sensational boxers are all called boring, which is telling you one of the reasons why I don't like boxing, right? Because they're going to tell me what I'm looking at, right? We see sensational means boring. I'm hitting you and you're not hitting me, and I'm of color, equals boring. That's what this is. So the hell with them, man. Who gives a damn about what they're saying? Believe your own eyes, people. Bottom line. But let's read this article a little bit about Demetrius Andrade sends his respect. He wrote a tweet, and in his tweet, let me see if I read this. It says, "Congrats, Leon Williams and Ingo. A great fight. And for showing how tough you are. Leon, you will be world champ in the future. Nothing but respect. Thanks to the fans who watched and supported boxing. Looking forward to defending this title in the summer." Right? Incredible. I think, isn't that classy, guys? Isn't that a classy thing to say? Right, let me read down in this article. There have been some thought about that Andrade, and they give his record 30-0 with 18 KOs, which is also incredible, could move up to the super middleweight. But as mentioned before, while he could get an order for a title shot for the WBO for doing so, it wouldn't come until next year. Billy Joe Saunders currently has that belt and is facing WBC, WBA titleist Canelo Alvarez on May 8th. If Canelo wins, his goal will be to fight Caleb Plant, the IBF titleist, in the fall. If Saunders wins, you could expect an immediate rematch with Canelo or the Saunders Plant, then that could become the goal. Either way, Andre's not getting a title shot at 168 pounds, right? So staying at 160 for the belt seems the wisest move. As for an opponent, that's not clear. The best and easiest option might be Jaime Munguia, the number 1 ranked contender of the WBO. But Jaime is set to fight June 19th against an opponent to be announced. And honestly, Andre Munguia has never really been brought up by either side. Stop there. Now, Munguia is the mandatory for Demetrius Andrade, and this article will say it's never been brought up by either side. That's not the truth. The truth is, Demetrius is like, well, come on, you're my mandatory. Would you want to fight me? Munguia didn't want to fight him. And then you read these articles, and if you're not really into boxing, you believe that Demetrius Andrade is not pressing to fight as mandatory. The Leon Williams fight did not have to happen if Jaime Munguia would have pushed like other mandatories to get their title shot. And he didn't. But that's what they're going to say. So, and it goes on further, some other stuff. It's not going to be Jamal Charlo who fight, but let me go to Jaime Munguia. By the way, his match in June, July is somebody to be announced, right? By the way, that could be Demetrius Andrade, but they're going to get somebody else. Whatever. It's not going to be Jamal Charlo who fights June 19th against Montiel, and it's probably not going to be Gennady Golovkin who might fight Roya Morata in December unification, and has shown no interest in Andrade, really. In theory, that would also be an easy fight to make because they're both at the zone. Now, we know that Demetrius Andrade been begging Golovkin to fight him. That won't happen either, right? So at the end of the day, they keep talking about these people and talking about Charlo, who is not by the zone, but Jaime Munguia is at the zone, Canelo Alvarez is at the zone, Gennady Golovkin is at the zone. They still won't fight him. So back up to the top, you damn right. Eddie Hearn is correct. This is the most avoided fighter that he's ever had to work with. I just didn't like when I was watching Leon Williams fight that they wouldn't mention that. They would only mention like Charlo, and only towards the end Golovkin. They didn't say Jaime Munguia didn't fight him, right? They won't say that Canelo Alvarez is up there fighting Billy Joe Saunders, who was doped and banned from boxing, and they fighting him instead of Demetrius Andrade. Like Andrade wouldn't go up to 168 to fight him, and they didn't mention that Canelo was at 154, did not want to unify in that division because you had two Charlos and an Andrade and a Lara, to be honest. Then you go to 160, and you didn't want to unify there when you had one fight to fight Andrade. They didn't mention that. Now you're at 168, where it's easier, and I hate to be that, no disrespect to the fighters there, but it's easier than middleweight. And now all of a sudden everybody's on lockdown, hoping that Canelo can make this happen, right? Got Caleb Plant waiting to hold into September. Ain't gonna fight nobody. So bottom line is, this is ridiculous. That's why I don't like boxing, to be honest. I can't be, sit here and say, hey, Canelo's about to fight Billy Joe Saunders on May 8th, I think it is. And, some people are, going to be half hyped about that. It's absolutely ridiculous because I'm not watching that, right? I'm not watching any Canelo, nothing, until he fights who I think he should be fighting. And it's not really on him totally. It's about what the media is portraying out there, right? They're trying to act like this is not a travesty with Canelo. I can make this a Canelo video about all of the things that he's been doing and getting away with. But I think I'm going to save that for this Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders, because Billy Joe Saunders is complaining about the referee and the judges. And I might just go into that video and go into more why Billy Joe Saunders would have a right to complain about those judges before the fight. One is Billy Joe Saunders ain't knocking nobody out, so he's going to need the judges to be fair. But I won't give up too much to that because it might be an extra video about that. But first, we're going to go get some rest. Bottom line is, Demetrius Andrade is the most avoided fight that Eddie Hearn has, most avoided fighter that Eddie Hearn has ever worked with. That's a stat. Plus, he's a very respectful and classy guy by sending this message to Leon Williams and Dominic Ingle. Don't you think? Doma Sports Talk Worldwide. And I'm up out of here, y'all.